The Void Century, Luffy's dream, the Will of D, and the One Piece, their legendary treasure. It is time to make an attempt to solve those puzzles and many other mysteries within this story. Sit by the fire, stranger, and let me unravel the riddles that may still elude you about Eiichiro Oda's masterpiece, the greatest story ever told, One Piece. Honestly, there's not much we know about Eiichiro Oda, the great mastermind who created and is still creating the manga we all love. This fact alone could already be a great hint to decipher some major aspects of the story, but obviously, the man loves his privacy, and this is the reason why I will not speculate about his past. But I, and I guess many of us, do feel so connected to One Piece because of one major aspect: found family. Throughout the story, over and over, we encounter characters which have problems with their family, or have no family at all. Characters who found friends and crews that would function exactly as what they were missing. I am talking about the crewmates of the Straw Hats, but also Whitebeard, Ace, Sabo, Koala, Kuma, you name them. Family and found family is an overarching element in One Piece, but it might be very easy to ignore it when it comes to theorizing about this great story. But here is the point, it is very important. I will explain to you what, in my opinion, is Luffy's and Roger's dream, and I think anyone who grew up under not ideal circumstances during his childhood might come to the same conclusion as I did. I started by looking at all the reactions and expressions of the people that heard the dream of Luffy and Roger, and decided to make 3 categories named shocked, laughing, and shocked but laughs afterwards, which is of course way too long, so we just called it Esbla. The characters will be sorted into these categories accordingly to their reactions. Let's start. In chapter 966, we see how Roger reveals his dream to Whitebeard and Odin. The man who was born to boil literally wrote in his logbook that he was frozen stiff, so we slide him into the shock category. Whitebeard, on the other hand, looks pretty shocked, almost annoyed, but then bursts into laughter, which makes him the first participant in the Esbla tier. He even mocks Roger and calls him a little boy, but I'll address this in a bit. Next up, Luffy's dream. In here, we can see all the reactions of the Straw Hats as Luffy tells them about what he wants at the end of his dream. We go from right to left, leaving the Sunny and its potential Pandaman aside, and start with Zoro. I wouldn't necessarily say that Zoro is annoyed or shocked, but he definitely looks a bit confused here, and that's why we take him by his hand and lead him right into the shock category, so he won't go missing on his way there. Next is Jinbei. He is definitely shocked as he says, "What did you just say?" But just a few seconds later, he can't stop the tears due to laughing, so he goes into Esbla. Then we got Nami. She clearly is shocked at first, but then proceeds to bless us with a motherly smile, which also qualifies her for Esbla. Brook is just bursting into laughter right away, which makes him the first candidate for laughing. Usopp is definitely shocked, even a bit annoyed, so we shove him in here. Frankie just loves Luffy's statement right away and calls it perfect, and therefore he coup de boost himself into laughing. Sanji tells Chopper to check his captain's head as he's laughing crazy and walks right into the happy category. Robin is speechless but then smiles as she asks Luffy about the reactions of the other people he told his dream to. Last but not least, our fluffy little doctor, who gives us a happy smile and then even starts crying in joy about what he just witnessed. We are done with the crew for now, but we still have 4 other candidates to look at: Sabo, Ace, Shanks and Yamato. Chapter 585 reveals to us that Sabo goes straight into Esbla as he's shocked and then starts to laugh, while Ace can't believe what he just heard. Shocked it is. But what about Shanks? Luffy says that Shanks was actually crying when he mentioned his dream. That's pretty telling, and not just because it were the same words as Roger's. But we can assume that it were tears of joy, so straight into laughing he goes.
Come on, man! Will you finally tell us about your idea for Luffy's dream or not?
I want my viewers to understand how I came to this conclusion. Is the first thing you wanna do, showing up in my video for the first time, really nagging me?
Oh, stop being such a bore! Tell us!
Okay. Where was I? Alright. Time for the last participant, Yamato. Yamato starts crying tears of joy, just like Shanks. He even says, "I would never laugh at that." He still is happy about it though. Now, if we look at all the people we have in the different categories, what is a major thing that the one in Laughing and Espla have in common? They all have a dramatic background regarding their childhood or families. We don't really know much about Brook's past as a child, but everyone else should be self-explanatory. Whitebeard valued nothing more than the idea of having a family, which hints at a not-so-happy childhood. Sanji, Nami, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Ace, Sabo, Yamato, all of them were traumatized as children. Roger proclaimed that he will make his dream come true once he reaches Laughtale and finds the great treasure. Luffy says, "That is what I want to do at the end of my dream." And Frankie states that he will have to at least be Pirate King to make that possible, which also tells us that they need to find the One Piece to accomplish Luffy's dream. Jinbei says that he picked a troublesome captain, and Usopp outright calls the idea impossible. And both Roger and Luffy are being referred to as childish or little kids. So it must be something that a little kid would say when it thinks about what a king, or in this case, the Pirate King, could do. Oden was frozen stiff at Roger's words. He is a man who is part of a royal family from a country that has many restrictions, especially regarding leaving it. So the dream must also be about freedom. Over and over again we hear Luffy say that the Pirate King is the most freest person in the world. All these reasons brought me to the conclusion that Luffy and Roger's dream was and is the following.
Oh boy, here it comes. Go on.
I want to be king of the pirates, and then I make it so that every child can choose their family whenever they want. Think about it. All the people in Laughing and Espla were traumatized. Yamato literally cries as he hears about Luffy's dream, because a loving parent was everything that he ever wanted, a father figure like Oden. Chopper got abandoned by his herd because he had a blue nose. Sanji laughs his ass off because he cannot ever imagine that this is possible, especially because he is the son of Judge. Nami is baffled, but she loves children, and since she was an orphan living under Belmare's roof, she totally likes the thought. Usopp is not a fan of this at all, because he adores his father. Zoro is pretty much indifferent as far as I can tell, but all we know about him is that his parents died. We don't know too much about his past yet. Jinbei grew up in the Fishmen district, which was a former orphanage. Frankie got tossed by his parents, and so on and so on. All of them found new families. Luffy might have come up with this idea because he himself had no one until he met Ace and Sabo, and he also saw how unhappy Ace and Sabo were about their families. Ace hated Roger and Sabo despised his parents too. Witnessing all of this, isn't it only natural that he would come up with this idea? Luffy cares a great deal about his friends. His nakama are his family, and seeing them happy is likely the most important thing in the world. Roger could have had similar bad experiences as a child. Just look at Whitebeard when Roger asks him to borrow Oden. He gets super upset saying, "Are you trying to steal my family from me?" Roger felt so bad about it that he left all his treasures and even food with Whitebeard in exchange. Also, he loves children. Just look at him holding up Hiyori. He has a wide grin upon his face. And thanks to chapter 4 billion, we know that he probably experienced the same with Shanks and Buggy. Found family is very important in One Piece. Wherever you go, look in any arc you want, you will always find situations or characters which fit into this theme. Think of the scene when Whitebeard asked Ace if he was happy with him as a father. But here comes the twist. Roger really thought he could accomplish his dream once he finds the great treasure. But he was well aware of the little time he had left due to his mysterious sickness. But when he came back from Laughtale to pick up Buggy and Shanks, he had to deliver bad news. He found something that revealed to him that it would not be him who would fulfill his dream. Shanks, who knew about his dream, was ecstatic. He was probably aware of his heritage and wanted nothing more than to choose Roger as his father instead. But Roger had to tell him that it would not be him, and Shanks cried. But what was it that Roger found at Laughtale, and how did it get there in the first place?
Was it the subscription button or a big thumb to like the video?
Not bad. It all starts with this magnificent whale, a majestic being of the sea, floating amongst the waves. But something is wrong. Laboon is trying to get out, imprisoned by the gigantic wall of the Red Line, unable to reach his family and his friends, and ever waiting for the return of the Ramba pirates. As Luffy and his crew encounter him, their ship is getting swallowed, and so it's time for some nice mirroring in a little inversion, as they always take place in Oda's epos that is One Piece. Take a look at this gate inside of Laboon. Take a look at the sea and the clouds in the sky surrounding it. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah, très bien. I can see it. Wait, this is just paint, you moron. Everyone knows it. What are you trying to say, huh?
Maki, would you please not always interrupt me at the good parts?
Oh, my bad that you're always trying to be super artistic, Mr. Storyteller.
Dude. Where was I? Right. Look at the gate. And now look at this. In chapter 102, the ship is being sucked in by Laboon through a huge swirl or whirlpool. As they reach his stomach, they find themselves in a new sea. A small island is in the middle of it, and the horizon is painted on the walls. And there it is, a huge gate. As we learn later, this gate leads out of the whale. But if we inverse the whole thing on a bigger scale, then what will we get? The Gates of Justice. 3 gigantic gates which stop trespassers from entering. But from entering what exactly? An enormous current named Tarai? Let's examine that a bit closer. That huge spiral enables ships to travel faster from one world government facility to another. These are Impel Down, Annie's Lobby and Marineford, though only world government affiliated ships are allowed to pass through it. I mean, being able to travel faster is pretty neat and all, but doesn't this kinda sound like an ass pull? Why build 3 gigantic gates that hinder anyone from entering, just for the purpose of traveling faster? Oh, and you cannot sail into the current from the open sides because, according to Elton Yon in chapter 522, the current makes it impossible to get inside. But isn't that big current not just another enormous whirlpool? Don't you think that there might be another reason for why all these 3 world government facilities are located here? What if that thing is not just a very useful current to make ships faster, but what if there is a gigantic entrance in the middle of it, leading somewhere? But where? SBS Volume 59. Hello Oda-sensei. Out of the blue. Can you write what it's inside Luffy said? Oh, and yours too. What? You mean like those inner brain things on the internet? Like that? Then I'll scope everyone else's brain as well. Take a good look. This picture portrays what's going on inside of the One Piece characters. Luffy cares a lot about meat, but also the word king. Zoro's head is filled with swords and strength. Sanji's with woman, food, Nami and Robin. Nami's head is filled with lots of money and beauty. Usopp's with warrior, lies and run. Chopper's with doctor, medicine, sweets, trust and beast. Robin's with learn, history and old secrets. Frankie is just weird and iron. Brooke, well, panties, love and tea. But the last head we see is of a fish. But not one that you eat for a dish. It's Odachi's head, and deep inside you can see world peace does reside.
Oh oui, that was a nice little poem, and you tried to be deep and all, but that's obviously a stretch. You're just saying that because peace sounds like peace.
I wasn't done.
Oh, well,
Get on with it!
Sekai Heiwa. World peace. World peace. World of One Piece. So yes, big gates that lead to a whirlpool of water, which leads out of a living being's body. Just that in this case the body is Odachi's. I'm claiming that the world of One Piece literally exists inside of Odachi's head. Let me explain further. It's not just Laboon, but also, remember Skypia? Remember when Luffy was inside of Nola, and at one point was standing inside of its eye, looking at the outside world? But why stop with looking? Remember when Kaido ate Luffy? What did Luffy do? He grabbed Kaido's eyes from the inside and flung himself out of his mouth. Out of the body, into the world outside. And even though Kaido is a dragon, What fruit did he eat? The Uo no Mi Moderu Seiryu, the fish fruit model dragon. And what is Oda's avatar, huh? Come on, tell me, Maki.
It's a fish.
Not so smart anymore, huh?
Huh?
Since the very first publication of One Piece in the Weekly Shonen Jump in Japan, Oda's avatar in the table of contents is a fish. Most of the times when Oda is interviewed on shows on TV or elsewhere, his head is covered by a fish. I will come back to this later, but I'm not done yet. I'm far from done. We stay with whirlpools, or better, swirls, because they are everywhere in the story. Sanji's eyebrows, the clouds that surround awakening fruit juices, Saint Saturn's recovering his body, swirls are everywhere. They literally are on the devil fruits themselves. Even the introduction boxes of characters and Roger's Jolly Roger had swirls. Swirls are patterns in waves, and swirls are also found in brains. Take a good look at the human brain and you will understand. And while there is a thing on the internet to call people with bad education smooth-brained, there also is the opposite where people say that they have a few wrinkles. What they mean are the little swirls on the brain and therefore want to say that they are smart. And what can a smart brain do? It can be creative. So basically, swirls in One Piece are the symbol of creativity. Anything that exists in the world of One Piece is a product of fantasy and creativity. Therefore, devil fruits and its powers are directly connected to Oda's fantasy and imagination. And the better a devil fruit user gets at using his abilities, the more versatile those powers become. If someone is able to unlock the full potential of their imagination, he will be granted more power in this world. It is also connected to the will of a person. If the person gives up, then the power of imagination won't aid them. Look at Bonnie as she hits Saturn with her distorted Nika-ish future in chapter 1103. She does not deal any damage and feels weak right afterwards. But before she attacks, she says, "If I'm gonna get killed here anyway, then." She already gave up, she lacked determination. We have already seen how determination is a factor that drives characters in the story over and over again. The shining example of this is of course Luffy, as he stands up after falling down again and again, until he achieves his goal. All of it is connected to being able to communicate with the gigantic brain that created and still creates this world. And yes, Egghead is just another foreshadowing for this. A big hub of information that could, if Vegapunk succeeds one day, connect all the people in this world and
Help them get a few more swirls on their brains.
well, yes, in a way.
Damn, I am so smart.
As I said, I think devil fruit powers draw directly from Oda's imagination and therefore allow users to go beyond their limits of human capabilities. Vegapunk said, quote, "Every devil fruit is a possibility for human evolution that someone desired. If only I could be like this, if only I could be like that. All powers represent the many branches of the future of humanity, but the unnatural status is loathed by the sea, the mother of nature, a fitting punishment for its sin. This is only my theory, so you see, you don't even need to debate whether any god exists or not. Isn't it just? Those with powers exist in different dimensions, dreamed up by someone else before them. Such a fascinating world." This someone Vegapunk talks about is Oda in my opinion. Those with powers that exist in different dimensions can literally be creations of other artists, like other manga or comics. Superman, Son Goku, Luke Skywalker, they exist in different dimensions, but since Oda knows about them, it's possible to get access to their abilities via devil fruit powers provided by his brain. But what about the sea, the mother of nature? Why are these abilities loathed by it? What if that mother of nature actually is just another devil fruit or power, given to the user by the creator of the world, Odachi? Imu at one point entered a state of mind that made it possible to have such an influence on other devil fruit users. But Imu might have also gained the devil fruit to gain even more influence at some point. The evil no Mi, which would be called Aku Aku no Mi in Japanese. Aku Aku. Aqua no Mi. It is like Sasuke. You don't say Sasuke, you say Sasuke. Couldn't that be a fitting name for the devil fruit possessed by Emu? An ability to grant and store powers to other people. I already made a video about this, you can find it linked in the description. But back to devil fruits. What if I tell you that original devil fruits might be only placeholders until someone discovers them? Let's say you're a CP9 agent and you have a devil fruit in front of you. You have no idea what kind of devil lives inside of it. But you really like giraffes. Or you are a big fan of everything being clean and tidy. I think you get what I mean.
No!
What I'm trying to say is, there might always be new devil fruits reaching the world of One Piece. And until someone eats them, it is totally undefined what powers you will get. It all depends on your wishes, will and imagination.
Yes, sure, but what about the devil fruit companion then, huh?
Good question. In my opinion, once a devil fruit formed the devil of some kind inside it, it will always stay the same. That is why there are already fruits in the world that people know about. For example, Blackbeard's Yami Yami no Mi, or the Suke Suke fruit that Sanji wanted so bad for reasons. Or Kaido's and Kuma's fruit, as they clearly were prizes that one could win at the Hunted God Valley. This also adds to Vegapunk's statement. Powers that exist dreamed up by someone before them.
Okay. But where are these undefined fruits coming from?
Come on dude, isn't it obvious now? Swirls, whirlpools, huge gates. Why else do you think the world government builds 3 of its biggest facilities around the terrain current? These fruits come out of the current, floating in the water as they fall from the tree of imagination. They come from Laughtale, the final island and the window into another world, Odachi's world. The island inside of Laboon, Luffy standing in Noda's eyes or flinging himself out through Kaido's mouth. These are all foreshadowings. There are countless stories in our world that tell of characters who have been swallowed by giant animals. I give you a quick rundown. Jonah and the Whale, Pinocchio, Gulliver's Travels, Homer's Odyssey, The Story of the Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen, which is an author I already connected to another theory of mine about Emu. Check out the link here. And last but not least, a character that is long due in One Piece theories. The Adventures of Baron von Münchhausen. I grew up with stories about that man, who was a notorious liar making up things to impress people. He accomplished feats like riding on cannonballs, splitting his horse in 2 parts while each part lives on without a problem, and climbing up a beanstalk to the moon to retrieve an egg he threw all the way up. Oh, and keep the beanstalk and the eggs in mind for a bit. These were some of his deeds among other things. But the one that is most important right now is the story about his adventure that involved being swallowed by a giant fish. Inside the creature's belly, he discovered an entire world inhabited by miniature people, complete with their own society and culture. Do you understand what I am saying? If you think that is far-fetched, but I surely hope you don't, then just wait for when the part with the beanstalk comes into play. As I already pointed out, Luffy got eaten by big creatures many times already, and there is a huge hole in the world of One Piece, and above it is the Tadai current, which prevents anyone above or under the sea from entering it. A current to stop anyone from going to Laughtale to discover the truth about the world. The truth that the whole world is fictional, and every character in it is just part of another story. A truth so shocking that even the people who learned about it do not speak of it. Because if you reach Laughtale, you will be able to see through Odachi's eyes. There once was a Japanese-French co-production anime named Il était une fois la vie. The Japanese title was Micro Patrol. It tells the story of the human body for children in a simplified and educational way. The characters are literally enzymes, hormones, red and white blood cells, and so on. It aired in 1987, and I think a 13-year-old Oda could definitely have been influenced by that. But back to where I stopped. In chapter 763, Lord tells us about his secret name. In the Japanese version, he uses the word Imina. Explaining Imina can be a bit confusing though, but to make it short, an Imina is the name of an ancestor that died or a living person whose name is to be avoided for reasons. It was for example forbidden to call a Japanese emperor by his name, which made his name an Imina. Lord Voldemort could also be a good example of a name that is avoided. I think that the name Water, therefore, was the name of a high-ranking official in the ancient kingdom that Joy Boy ruled over once. Which means that the people of the monkey family or any other person in the D clan will have different imena too. In chapter 764, Corazon tells Law about how the elderly people in Marijoas tell tales about the D as if they were monsters. If you don't behave, you'll be gobbled up by a D. Or, the D will always cause another storm. But why is that? I think it is because they did not only learn about the truth of the world on this day, but also how it will end. There is a group of people in the world of One Piece which laughs or smiles in the face of death. The members of this clan can face the truth of the world with a wide smile. And as Roger and Luffy laughed on the execution platform, so did the Roger pirates laugh when they learned the truth about this world. Normal people would be disheartened, shocked, sad or confused, but not Roger and his crew. They laughed at what they discovered. They took in everything they learned with a smile, because they knew there was nothing they could do about it. They simply accepted their destiny. In my opinion, the D stands for destiny. It is the will of destiny that lives on, because the ancient kingdom's name was Destiny. Desu Teni. Desu Teni in Japanese can sound like death in hand. The will of destiny is in your hand. There is more, but I will reveal this further into the video, so stay tuned. Is that true though? Was there truly nothing they could do about it? I mentioned, Roger thought he could achieve his dream once he reached the final island, but it seems like he had to realize that it would not be him who would go beyond Laughtale. Beyond the window to the outside world. Beyond, to a place where the great treasure lies. The One Piece. They could only watch it unfold in front of them, from where they were at. But to achieve his dream, he would have needed the requirements to do so, which Roger had not. But he was able to see that there once was a person who managed to go outside. A man called Joy Boy. Because Joy Boy, the ancient giant, left the final message on a poneglyph on Laughtale. A message about what he had found on the other side of the window. The day Joy Boy reached the final island was the beginning of the end of the ancient kingdom. Joy Boy, the ruler of the ancient kingdom, the one who wore the straw hat crown, was leading the world peacefully and equally.
Hold on for a second. I don't think the giant straw hat could fit on an ancient giant head. I mean, just look at the panel in chapter 806, where Imu is standing in front of it.
Yeah, I thought so too at first, to be honest. But take a look at the panel above. Here we can see a direct side-to-side comparison of Imu walking up to the alcoves. I think the straw hat in there could very well fit on an ancient giant's head. You can't really tell how far away Imu is from the straw hat by looking at the other panel. And even if that doesn't make any sense to you, Joy Boy or Luffy or whoever has the power of Nika is certainly able to give a straw hat rubbery properties to fit it on his head anyway.
Good point.
At this point in time, a status quo was being held, as each of the known powers in the world had access to the ancient weapons. The people of the moon, Tsuki no Hito, were in control of Uranus, a giant flying weapon. The sea folk had the mermaid princess Poseidon, which was able to control the sea kings, and the ancient kingdom itself built a weapon named Pluton, which was able to destroy an entire island with one shot. Joy Boy was trying to negotiate with the merfolk for years to help them live on their surface, but that was not an easy task, as many nations in the world still feared the people of the sea and thought of them to be nothing but monsters. As King Joy Boy came back from Laughtale, he talked to his inner circle about what he had seen, the pictures on a huge desk that showed the future of the world. He saw a gigantic hand writing and drawing things on paper. This hand must have been the hand of the creator of the world, as he saw how it would draw him and other people he knew. It drew pictures of this world being drowned in an enormous flood, and a boy that was not him, wielding the same powers he had, the powers of Nika. It appeared to him that everything that happened in this world was decided by this gigantic being. His inner circle consisted of people he trusted. Among them were J. Garcia Seddon, Marcus Mars, Topman Workery, Ethan Barron Venus Judo, and Shepherd Jew Peter. The things that their king proclaimed to them were confusing, but if true, announcing them to the public as Joy Boy intended would only cause problems and bring chaos to the world. At least that is what they told him. But in truth, they were plotting for quite a while already to overthrow their king, as they grew tired of his rule and the things he intended to do. He and the people of his kingdom and their Buccaneers were living relics of the past, and it was time to bring a change to this world.
They're Buccaneers? What do you mean?
I'm sorry, but I won't reveal this yet. The future 5 elders were in contact with other countries that were also unhappy about Joy Boy's plans. Among these 20 kingdoms, one was especially annoyed about his doings. The Nerona family. So the 5 elders told Joy Boy that no one would believe his claims unless he brought proof. He decided to go back, but this time accompanied by a member of the Three-Eyed tribe, who were known for being able to read everything. Let's call her Custard for now, to make things easier.
Custard? Really?
I can't call her Pudding, obviously. Duh. Once they reached the island, he asked Custard to translate what was written on the notes that they were able to see. But the things she was saying were confusing. She talked about a crew of pirates, a man who would inherit the powers of Nika, a samurai from Wano, and so on. She talked about how these pirates would one day turn the world upside down and defeat the evil world government and bring true freedom to all races. He was amazed but also shocked by all this. What evil world government were these notes talking about? So he used the powers of Nika to get outside of the window. As he got outside and stood on the huge desk, his eyes popped out in shock as he noticed that he just left the mouth of a huge fish. That fish was just as surprised as he was. "This is odd. How could this happen?" said the fish. "My own creation is standing before me?" he thought. Was he himself just a part of another story? Now that he thought about it, wasn't this absurd? He himself was living underwater. How can he even draw without the ink getting erased? He never thought about that for some reason. Joy Boy was standing in an enormous office, which weirdly enough was underwater. Big and small fish of all kinds were swimming around, and the room was dimly lit. He thought to himself, "This place is all blue." The big fish was trying to grab him, but Joy Boy didn't want to take any risks, so he decided to snatch some of the notes that were laying around and went back into the fish's mouth. If you think that this idea is a reach, then look at Dory and Broggy standing in front of a giant fish that is swallowing the Going Merry. Or how about Warpole's mouth appearing in the snow, almost eating Luffy, or Blueno opening doors wherever and whenever he wants. Or how about this, in the game Gigant Battle 1 and 2, Oda's avatar, the Fishman Odachi, is a support character, and do you wanna know what he does?
Yeah, sure.
He traps opponents in manga panels which he draws.
Oh.
But back to where I was. The moment Joy Boy entered the mouth and was back in his world, everything went black. When they came to the senses, they were on his ship, but had no memory of what had happened. That was 4 years before the end of the Void Century. But Joy Boy was still holding a huge piece of paper in his hands. The moment when Custard translated these papers, all the memories of what had happened came back. That they found this strange island and window, and this huge creature that was seemingly writing their story. Though the things written on the papers were even more shocking. Everything that had happened was written on these papers, and no one in the world knew about it. Not even the villains who betrayed Joy Boy. Traitors in his inner circle were planning to overthrow the kingdom and enslave and kill every person that was not human. But the different races did not go down without a fight. It was a long war, but eventually, the 20 families under the lead of the 5 elders got the upper hand. After this was done, they finally planned to use the ancient weapon Pluton to destroy the moon and get rid of the Skyfolk, as they were constantly trying to help the people who got attacked by them. Zunisha, who was in charge of carrying the ancient weapon Pluton, was searching for Joy Boy the entire time. Joy Boy tried to calm down the participants of the war, but no one wanted to listen to someone who claimed to be a king that was lost almost a century ago. So Joy Boy quickly went to find Zunisha, as the elephant was carrying the ancient weapon. It was at this time that the people of the moon used Uranus to destroy the ancient kingdom, to stop their madness. When Zunisha saw that, anger welled up inside of him, as the ancient kingdom was a holy place that was now lost forever. So it activated Pluton to shoot at the city of Burka on the moon, in a hunger of vengeance. Joy Boy met many new people while searching for Zunisha. One of them was Toki Yamatsuki. As he learned about her ability, he gave her the advice to use her power to leave into the future and left her. But she did not heed his advice until later. I will come back to this in a bit. Over the course of the next 4 years, Joy Boy found Zunisha and learned what it had done. He condemned the elephant to walk for an eternity for the grave sin it has committed by hypnotizing it. The remaining minks that were able to flee from the war were hiding in Wano. He told them to live on Zunisha's back from now on, to be safe, but before that, they moved Pluton and hid it underneath Mount Fuji. He then sent a message to the sea folk and apologized that the day for them to live on the surface is still far. But he told them to build a gigantic ark as he knew that one day he would return and a big flood would occur, and it would be the sea folk who would save the people of the surface, as they would come to their aid with this enormous ship, which would result in the people of the surface to accept the merfolk as the saviors and therefore live together with them in peace. He also told the Master Stone smiths of the Kosuke clan to copy the text written on the notes he found onto big indestructible cubes called poneglyphs, so the true history will never be forgotten. We learn about this in chapter 818, by the way.
Oh yeah? Why does that matter?
Well, remember what I said about the Gates of Justice and the entrance to Laughtale?
Yeah, you mumbled something about Laboon and how the gate inside of it looks like the Gates of Justice and all that nonsense.
Oh, nonsense you say. Then could you please do me a favor and tell me what's the title of chapter 818?
Yeah, sure. It's Oh.
Yeah?
The chapter name is Inside the Veil. Damn. And in it, they find the road Poneglyph.
Anyway, back to where I stopped. After this, he went on his way to find the remaining people of the Skyfolk. He found the Shandians, residing on islands they took 100 years ago, and convinced them that he was on their side. After this, Joy Boy vanished. I will address this in an extra section, but at the same time there was a traitor among the samurai in Wano who told the world government about the secret stones the Kosuke clan had produced. He was part of the Kurosumi clan. As the world government learned about these stones, they sent all their forces to get a hold of them, because they too had forgotten what exactly happened over the past 100 years. They managed to get these artifacts and started deciphering them right away. They learned many things and wrote them down upon their documents. They learned that they had forgotten about all these things, because Joy Boy removed the papers that were holding the history from the creator's desk. But they also learned that the poneglyphs didn't only tell the story of what happened during the so-called Void Century, they also told about how Joy Boy got to Laughtale and what he had seen. They were shocked about the fact that they were only puppets in the story, characters drawn on papers who seemingly had no free will. The worst part was that the story would eventually come to an end. They could not allow this to happen. Since they now knew where to find the entrance to Laughtale, they decided to completely block it off from the outside world by making it impossible to enter the Tadain Curtain. Through this, also they were able to get access to the new devil fruits that would occasionally be pushed out of the hole. They would test them on their slaves, and eventually Imu got hold of one of them, and the fruit would form a devil that would match Imu's great desire. A power to stop any other fruit user, an exploit to restrict them, to steal their powers, to make them null. A power that would grant an ability to match the skills of Nika, an ability that would be able to draw from the creator's imagination itself. And then, Imu ate the fruit. Unacceptable. It was unacceptable for them to be characters in the story. They would make it so that nothing that is written on these papers would ever come true. They would make sure that they will gain control over all of this. What would you do if you learned you were living in a world that was not real? It's just like the movie The Matrix. Some people will try to escape it, while others will try to stay in it and use the knowledge to their advantage. Imu would become the creator of this world instead. And the reason for this was that the information Joy Boy left on the poneglyphs revealed who the savior of the world would be 800 years in the future. Have you never wondered why every single crewmate of the Straw Hats had such a devastating childhood? This was actually the main reason why I came up with the idea I was just telling you guys.
Oh, You just mean your little head cannon just now?
Don't be like that. I'm about to bring up points that support what I'm saying.
Oh yeah? That better be some hell of evidence.
I'll try, man. When I am done, you're probably gonna agree with all the points I brought up. Or at least with some of them.
We will see.
I think that the world government deciphered almost everything that was written on the poneglyphs they stole. Almost. They learned about the past century, they learned about the things Joyboy saw and about the truth of this world. And they learned about the origins of the pirate crew that would be the catalyst to bring an end to their reign and turn the world upside down. I think the reason why all the Straw Hats had such bad childhoods is because the world government knew about the approximate region and time of their birth. It was hard to get access to Jinbei since he was an orphan in the underwater kingdom. Brook was part of a battle convoy in a certain kingdom. This is all that we know about his past. But the fact that the name of this kingdom has not been revealed yet plays with the idea that the land might have been eradicated at some point. I think this happened because they were trying to nullify the chance of this future crewmate's survival. Maybe it even was the kingdom that Mihawk resided in at some point. It was reduced to nothing but rubble. They were unable to locate Frankie because he was the child of pirates and one day he got tossed overboard, allegedly because he was too troublesome. Robin is a clear case. The world government made sure that no one would survive Ohara. When they noticed that Robin had escaped, they put a bounty on her head. Chopper was described as a pet, according to the texts. They would not waste any resources on something like that. Hey, I have to stick with the joke, okay?
Naturellement.
Sanji was a problem, because the kid will be born in the kingdom of Germa. They had to take a more careful approach here because an all-out war with a power like Germa would have been long and costly and not necessarily ended in success. Usopp was another problem, as they could not locate him. Yasop, who is part of Shanks' crew, was told by Usopp's mother to follow his dream and leave them both alone? I don't think so. I think Shanks knows more than we think. He exclusively went out of his way to get Yasop and told him to relocate his son. Nami is another clear case in my opinion. The Oikot kingdom was attacked by pirates 20 years ago. A whole kingdom destroyed by pirates? If those were not a Yonko crew like the Beast or Big Mom pirates, then I highly doubt that. I think that stuff might have been staged to make sure that no one survives this madness. Little did they know, a marine named Belle Mare would step in to save 2 children. Zoro. Oh boy, there was another problem for the world government because they only knew that it's a child with ancestors from Wano, but Wano already was in control of one of the Yonkos at that time. Plus, it had been closed off from the outside world for centuries. They figured that due to Kaido's intervening, the problem might have already solved itself. But the crux lies in Luffy, because in my opinion, he is the only one they did not have any information about. As they were about to decipher the last parts of the poneglyphs, Lily stepped in and sent them flying with the power of the Nikkyo Nikkyo no Mi. Because Lily Nefertari had learned from Toki Amatsuki about the truth of this world. When she heard the first part about the big fish that was creating their destiny, she laughed. But soon she would be shocked as she discovered what happened during the period of time that everyone forgot about. But she also knew about what was going on with the poneglyphs, because she was Nerona Imu's fiancé. Imu has a garden full of lilies to remind them about their lost fiancé, and even said that they are longing for Vivi after seeing her picture. After saving the poneglyphs, Lily removed her weapon from the empty throne and vanished. I'll address this in a bit. So Luffy is the only crewmate the world government knew nothing about.
So, why didn't they just go straight to their mamas and kill them?
Because they didn't have full information. They had no names, nor did they have a specific date of birth. All they knew was that the people of the crew that would become a problem for them would be from these specific places. And to support that idea even more, we can mirror that perfectly with Ace and Port Girls de Rouge. If you recall, the Marines searched far and wide to hunt down every pregnant woman who fit the bill for carrying the child of Roger.
Oh,
this is why the Straw Hats had such horrible childhoods. They were not randomly growing up in countries that would experience crisis. No, it was all set up from the start. But there is one more member that I have not yet mentioned. Nefertari di Vivi. Because Alabasta was the last homeland of a crewmate that had been deciphered right before Lily sent them flying. She then sent a letter to her brother in Alabasta to protect the poneglyphs and bear the flag of the dawn. just like Vivi sent a letter to her father as she discovered the truth about Crocodile. Together with Amatsuki Toki, she then jumped into the future and gave birth to the grand-grand-grand-grand-grand-grand-grandmother of Nefertari Titi.
Pour de vrai?
That's just a guess, but if we assume that every generation will have children between the age of 20 to 25 years, then it could be between 8 to 10 generations over the course of 200 years.
200 years? Where is that coming from?
Well, this marks the start of where I will try to provide proof for the ideas I have.
Oh, go on.
Eventually, Lily died and the Devilfruit got lost, until it was found and offered as a prize 38 years ago at the God Valley Hunt.
Why didn't they notice that it was Lily then? I mean, the world government.
I explain it like that. The world government had no clue that Toki's power existed, and since the only way to get eternal life was in their hand all the time, they expected her to be dead. They didn't think too much about Titi just looking like Lily, or Vivi like her mother either. Family members can look alike, especially royal families, if you get what I mean.
Huh? What do you mean? Can you explain that a bit more?
No. But this is the reason why Ibu wants Vivi so bad. It's not just that she resembles their fiancé from 800 years ago, but also because it's finally dawned on them that she is the last crew member of the Straw Hat Pirates. To stop the story from progressing means to stop the crew from getting all of their members. Nico Robin was the only safe bet of all of these crewmates because she was the only survivor of O'Hara, so it was easy to understand that she must be the one who would join Luffy's crew. When Lily arrived approximately 210 years ago, she found someone she fell in love with and they had children. Toki, on the other hand, kept jumping forward in time. But Lily knew that King Joybay could still be around as he was an ancient giant. So she started looking for him, or rather, sent some people she trusted on a search mission aboard the ship Saint Bliss. In chapter 218, a gigantic ship is falling down from the sky and almost smashed the Going Merry and its crew underneath it. Robin states that the name of the ship is the Saint Bliss or Bliss, and that it set sail 208 years ago. Then Luffy manages to snatch something before the ship started to sink, a map of Skypiea. And now buckle up folks, because in my opinion, this is the first time we see Joy Boy.
You are kidding, right?
Nope. Take a look at the map. On it we can see the part of Jaya that got blasted into the air 400 years ago, and on it we see an ancient giant holding an axe. But it's not just any ancient giant. In my opinion, this is Joy Boy, and I think I got proof for that.
Wait, if that is Joy Boy, where is the Straw Hat?
I will explain this afterwards.
Oh, you say that a lot.
Now, the story about Baron von Münchhausen comes full circle. Remember how I told you that he climbed up a beanstalk to get his axe back from the moon? Again, we mirror and invert a bit in good old Oda fashion. Chapter 425. Take a good look, because in this cover story we can see Viper having a snack, but his sandwich is rather unimportant compared to the gigantic axe that was slammed into the ground behind him. Take a look at how big that axe is. And now also take a look at the tree stump behind him, which the Chantians have built their new village on. Do you remember how big the trees and animals in Upper Yard are? Robin says in chapter 253 it's due to something in the clouds that makes the fauna and flora grow rapidly. Do you remember the beanstalk named Giant Jack on which the Golden Bell resided? As we all know, Oda loves to play with existing fairy tales just like Münchhausen stories. You might be familiar with the story of Jack and the Giant. In it, a boy buries some beans which grow into a gigantic beanstalk that gives him access to the land of giants, who live in the clouds. He climbs it and steals gold, and eventually a golden harp from the giants. The giant notices it and follows Jack down on the beanstalk. But Jack is faster, and cuts the whole thing, which leads to the giant falling down and dying. I think Oda reversed the whole thing. Have you never wondered why there was a single giant beanstalk in the clouds in Skypiea?
No, that thing was there after Jaya got...
No, spare me that. I checked it to be sure. The giant beanstalk already was in the clouds when parts of Jaya got blasted up there. We can see it in chapter 292. The island literally got pierced through by it. But why was it up there already, huh? I think it was like this. Joyboy wanted to win the Skypians and Birkins to fight on his side, so he used the way up to Skypia that he knew, a giant beanstalk that grew all the way up to the clouds. Either this or he really had magical beans that grew super fast, but I liked the first idea better. Maybe it even worked as a gateway for the Skyfolk when they were coming from the moon. The Skypians stayed in the clouds and the Shantians went down the beanstalk to Jaya. Anyway, he went up there to negotiate with them, but agents of the world government spied on him and saw him going up. The moment he was out of sight, they started to cut the beanstalk under the clouds and on the ground. When Joyboy wanted to return to the ground, the beanstalk was gone. He had no means to get down from there whatsoever. As far as we know, the only ways to get up there are the knock-up stream or the summit of the High West, but so far we don't know what that actually is. Maybe it's the big Adam tree on Elbaf, but to get there he would have needed a ship to sail the ocean clouds in the White Sea. But here's the problem, he had nothing up there to build a ship. Nothing. Until, approximately 400 years ago, parts of Jaya got blasted up. But even then, the trees on Jaya were way too small to build a ship that could carry an ancient giant. But as we know and I already mentioned, this would change over the course of time. I would say approximately something around 200 years. You see, because this is when the Saint Bliss went missing. This is when the Fishmen were allowed to join the world government and the Reverie World Council. And this is when the Iron Giant attacked Marijoas 200 years ago. Joyboy was stuck on Skypia until 200 years ago, and he did not become active again until the people that went to the Sky Island on the Saint Bliss found him. Why I assume that the people on the ship were looking for him? You might remember how they started investigating and prepare for a dive in chapter 220. When Luffy, Zoro and Sanji dove down to the shipwreck, they found several things. And among those things was a portrait of a woman that looks just like Vivi, or her mom, Titi, or
Nefedari di Lili.
Correct, my smart sidekick.
Wait, who said I am your sidekick?
Anyway, the problem was that the Shandians were in conflict with the Skypians, and the Skypians wanted to get access to the resource they call Vars. Over the past century, the Skyfolk became disconnected from each other, and therefore didn't know that they had a common heritage. The moon. Joyboy, who still knew about all of this, perhaps tried to negotiate for both sides, and maybe they lived in peace for a while until the people of the Saint Brice arrived. Until then, Joyboy was their god. You might remember the statue of Vars? But as the Blue Sea dwellers arrived in the White Sea, they got attacked by either Skypians, Shantians or both. I assume someone of the ship must have survived and accomplished his mission to find Joyboy and inform him about what was going on in the world and the message that he had for him. That was when he decided to chop down trees and go back to the Blue Sea. I think Joyboy then looked for the Iron Giant, a relic from before the Void Century. Only he knew how to activate it with the ancient power of the Dawn.
The power of the Dawn?
Yes, I'll explain it later. He then went down to Fishmen Island, secretly as he didn't dare to show his face after being gone for so long. He knew that no one would remember him in the first place. He had been gone for 700 years. He searched access to the Sunlight Tree Eve. With his straw hat crown, the crown of the sun gone, he needed some other medium to gain control over Nika's powers. The tree itself absorbed the sunlight at the surface and focused them all the way down to Fishmen Island. With these as the source of power, he activated what Luffy calls Gear 5 and started to remote control the Iron Giant. The Iron Giant climbed up the red line, and as it was about to attack Marijoas, he got spotted by the Fishmen. Not knowing who he was, all they saw was a gigantic being messing with the roots of the Sunlight Tree Eve, the source of their light, all the way down at the bottom of the sea. Immediately they started attacking him, and because he was underwater, old and weakened, he most likely tried to explain himself to them, but likely they killed him and handed him over to the world government, as they heard about what had happened at Marijoas. The world government took his corpse, and in exchange for the Fishmen's great deed in aiding to stop the Iron Giant, they allowed them to be part of it and attend the reverie. But even after this, humans continued to hate Fishmen. This was the end of Joyboy. and his Devilfruit found a new host, lying dormant until the day it was unearthed by the world government, who then tasked Who's Who with retrieving it. With Joy Boy's body in their custody, they started experimenting on it, creating weird creatures by attempting to get hold of his powers, or maybe to recreate ancient giants to make them part of their army. But the experiments were all failures. The results of these were the numbers. Hachan, for example, is 188 years old. We got this information because it was released on a Weaver card. One day, Kaido acquired the numbers. It remains unclear whether they escaped from laboratories and were subsequently sold on the underground market, or if the world government was the seller. And the giant straw hat? I cannot say for sure when it happened, but I am certain that at some point, Joy Boy entrusted his straw hat to Ors. He most likely told him to hold on to it until the day the promised person arrives to wear the crown. So Ors put it on his head and took it everywhere he went. You will love this part. Wherever he went, Ors was carefree. The straw hat crown made him careless and ignorant to many things that other people would have found bothersome. And that was especially true for cold weather. One day he reached the land of ice, dressed in his loincloth, as someone asked him, "Aren't you cold?" That was when he realized that it was freezing around him. Unable to find clothes big enough to wear for him, he ended up freezing to death. We saw exactly that in chapter 555's flashback, when Ors Jr. was wearing the straw hat Ace made for him. He literally said, "I'm not even cold." And then look at the emphasis that is being put on the straw hat falling to the ground. The straw hat crown and his body were eventually discovered by world government agents, and it took the straw hat with him since it was emanating light. Once it arrived in Marijoas, the 5 elders in Imu identified it as the crown of the former king of the ancient kingdom and stored it in the catacombs in the alcove that we have seen in chapter 906, right beside the translated text from the poneglyphs, which in my opinion are in the windows right next to it. In chapter 506, Roger said to Rady, "I won't die, partner." One chapter later, Rady answers Robin, who is asking whether or not he knows about what happened in the Void Century, and Rady says, "Yes, we know," while smiling bittersweet. Then he says, "We learned about everything that occurred." He goes on, "But don't get ahead of yourself, miss. It seems that we and those at Ohara were too hasty. Even if I told you everything in history right now, the answer you will arrive at may be different from ours, even after you see the world in its entirety at your own pace. But if you still want to know, I will tell you everything that happened in this world." Sorry for the long quote, but I'm trying to make a point here. I think Rady is not speaking metaphorically. He really means it. They know everything in history.
Why?
I wish you would pay more attention, Marquis.
Huh?
They have seen everything that happened in this world on Odachi's desk, and Roger was able to commune with Odachi's mind through the voice of all things. I think the voice of all things is transported through objects or living beings, which hold great importance in the story. The amount of knowledge that these beings or objects hold is so significant for the plot that it seeps through as messages to people who have the ability to connect with it. The big hive mind that is Odachi's brain, just like Egghead.
This confuses me. I don't quite understand.
Do you know Hunter x Hunter?
Oui. Yes.
Think of it like this. When Gon and Killua look for valuable objects to sell on a market, they start using Nen to find them, because objects that hold great value were crafted by people who dearly cared about their craft, and they wanted them to be as perfect as possible. This resulted into these objects having an aura of Nen. For me, in One Piece, things like the poneglyphs or Zenisha hold so much importance for the story that some people who are able to hear the so-called voice of all things are literally able to hear Odachi's thoughts when he created them.
Oh, now I get it.
But back to people who know. This is why Roger said he was too early in chapter 968, because the story wasn't finished yet. In the chapter before he said that he wished he was born in Joy Boy's time, because he learned about the past before the Void Century at Laughtale. He learned about the great scientific wonders they accomplished, and the king who brought joy to every corner of the world, a time in which children were able to live in peace together with their families. He was standing in the face of that vast treasure. which was very real indeed. Rayleigh told Robin that he might come to a different conclusion when they reached Laughtale, but he already knew that this was the case, because from everything they learned at Laughtale, he knew that Luffy and his crew were the ones who would turn the world upside down. In chapter 511, Rayleigh said, "Their era is only just beginning, because he knows that they are the ones who are the protagonists of the story." He also addressed Kizaru and tells him, "Confusion is what life is about, because when someone learns about the truth of this world, confusion will hit this person like a hammer." When Kuma-sen's destroyers flying in chapter 513, Rayleigh says to Kizaru, "Something extraordinary is going on over there." He knew. Whatever was happening, he knew it was necessary for the story to carry on. It was important that all the Straw Hats got out of danger. Again, remember, according to my theory, Imu wants to stop the story from progressing, to keep their reign. That's why Rayleigh made sure that Kizaru wouldn't intervene. If Imu could get hold of one of the crewmates that are prophesied, then the story could not be finished. That's why Vivi will be the last crewmate. That's why Imu wants her. Crocus also knew. That's why he put his own Laughtale inside of Laboon, as he decided to treat him from within, because it reminded him of the island. Toki obviously knew. That's why she made a prophecy anticipating what would happen in 20 years. She always wanted to go to Wano, but when she talked to Odin, she said, "Just being around you makes me feel like I've already reached my destination." She knew. That's why she didn't stop him from traveling on with Roger. Au contraire, she insisted that he would go.
Why is that?
Because you only need to connect the dots now. Just remember what I said about the voice of all things. In One Piece, characters who master Haki to the extreme can develop the ability to look into the future. It can take different forms and be stronger or weaker. It can be called mantra or observation Haki, but in my opinion, one thing is for sure. Everyone who uses it is able to connect with Odachi's thoughts and memories of the story, and therefore look a few panels, pages, or even volumes into the future.
Oh, now everything makes sense. You are talking about characters like Luffy and Katakuri who were able to dodge each other's attacks.
Yes.
Oh, Madame Charlet, you mean her prophecies were always correct because she literally was able to access Odachi's memories?
Absolutely correct. Madame Charlie is able to foresee that the Sea Kings are restless because they know that the Mermaid Princess will be born. This connects to the voice of all things. Everything is connected. The powers granted by Devilfruits that stem from Oda's imagination, or the imagination of other people dreamed up in different dimensions. The voice of all things that tells critical information here or there, future sight. All of this can be explained if you connect it to the big fish head. Odachi's mind. The crystal ball Charlie used was a medium to enhance her already existent abilities. Remember? Madame Charlie proclaimed that Fishmen Island will be destroyed by Luffy's hands in chapter 610. Finally, in chapter 653, she breaks the crystal ball, as she is not able to endure these visions anymore. But it's not only future sight. In my opinion, there is another way to tap into the mind of the creator, and it's done via states that influence one's mind. Things like hypnotism, madness, or dreams. Doflamingo, for example. We have several very suspicious panels with him. In chapter 581, he takes out Moria with the help of the Pacifista, and when Moria asked if it was Sengoku who sent him, he answered, "Nope, someone higher up." In chapter 595, he talks to some person with a bowler hat that's not identifiable, and at first it seems that he's getting his orders from this person. I assume it's a high-ranking CP agent, if not the highest. But as we learn in chapter 793, Doflamingo got his orders from even higher than the Gorosei.
Wait, what do you mean, higher?
Well, that is what he is saying. Sakazuki is yelling at the Gorosei and saying, "So you're telling me that the whole mistaken mess about Doflamingo leaving the warlords was on orders from even higher than you all?"
But Isn't the only one higher than the Gorosei, Emu?
Yes, it's weird. Unless
Unless what?
Unless Doflamingo has ringed eyes.
Oh,
We never see his eyes. Not once. He's wearing sunglasses since he was a kid. But what if people with ringed eyes are actually under some kind of hypnosis? Either forcefully put on them, or put on them by themselves.
by themselves?
Yes. I think that ringed eyes are an indicator that people have been hypnotized. Can you imagine that Mihawk perhaps only is the greatest swordsman because he hypnotized himself to believe exactly that and therefore kept training and trying until it eventually became true? Just like Django told his crewmates that their wounds are closing and they become stronger. Can you imagine that Caribou just forgot his former personality? And what about Emu? I mentioned the word madness earlier. I think that characters in One Piece can reach a point of madness due to circumstances that they can't mentally endure anymore, in which they fall into a state of self-hypnosis. They push away their true personality and replace it with another one. It's a self-defense mechanism. Emu wasn't able to handle the truth about this world and therefore became what we know today. I'm not saying that's the same for every character with ringed eyes, but I think ringed eyes are an indicator of long-lasting personality-changing hypnosis. That is, in my opinion, what happened to young Doflamingo. He discovered something when he was a child in Marijoas, something that drove him mad. That is also the reason why he knows about the hidden treasure. He found the catacombs with the alcoves and maybe even saw Emu. In chapter 906, when he gets imprisoned, he's saying, "Have they come for me? An assassin from above?" He knows things. In chapter 801, while still being transported to Impel Down, he gives a long speech to Utsuru, telling her that he was holding the reins to the monsters in this world. In my opinion, he too learned about what's going to happen in the future, and just like Emu, he tried to keep the story from progressing. But this madness can work in similar ways like observation haki or future sight. I think, in a way, these characters are able to tap into the big hive mind that is Odachi's memory, but differently. They hear a voice which tells them, "Become the greatest swordsman. Become an evil pirate. Take out Gecko Moria." But these are not direct orders. It's more like that they get infused with ideas how the plot would go on, or they receive information from chapters to come.
You gotta admit, this is wild, man.
Yes, but we thought the same when Gear 5 happened, right? Remember all the theories that people brought up when it came out?
But
You have to look at it like this. One Piece might not be the first manga or story to break the fourth wall, but it will be the first one to do it in a way that will blow people's minds. Just like Gear 5, just like the Klabautermann of the Mary. Because just as Oda creates every character in the story with the power of his imagination, just like that, Usopp creates the Klabautermann. Because his and the other crewmates' love for the ship was so big that he unknowingly manifested something that would repair it by making use of the creator's power. In my opinion, this phenomenon is another example of characters in One Piece who tap into the stream of creation and make use of it. Especially characters like Usopp, who have a great talent for creating things, are good at utilizing this technique, even if they don't know about it. That is why Usopp keeps coming up with lies that turn out to be true later on. I already mentioned it, but I think it helps understanding what I am stating if I say it again. It is the same principle as what Vegapunk is trying to accomplish with Egghead, a stream of free-floating information that is accessible from anyone, anywhere, at any time. He says in chapter 1067, humanity would share one mind. You see?
yes, mon Dieu, oui, according to your theory, they already do.
Correct. Oda, the creator of One Piece, is the mind they all derived from, and possibly can all gain access to. Since Luffy is able to use Gear 5, he's able to draw from the power of Odachi's imagination. As mentioned before in chapter 1103, Bonnie tries to tap into a Nikkai's future, but her attack against Saturn deals no damage. She even feels weak. Saturn comments it by saying that it is pathetic that she doesn't even fully understand the meaning of Nika's name. I think he's saying that she doesn't fully understand how to use her power correctly, because he knows that if you want to make use of the potential that lies within fruits, you have to have a strong will, because the will is the driving factor that pushes a person in this world. A strong will is required to gain access to Haki, and a strong will is required to use a devil fruit to their full potential. But Bonnie, she already gave up, because before she attacked him she said, if I'm gonna get killed here anyway, then. Her will was not strong enough anymore. But if you really want to hear a wild take, how about this? Have a look at Vegapunk's thoughts in chapter 1104. The Buccaneers were said to have a special characteristic beyond their strong bodies. After all, your people once.
What's a what?
Yes, I was asking the same during my live reaction. I might have found an answer. Let me finish that sentence. After all, your race was once created by the people of the ancient kingdom to take care of and protect their children.
Say what?
Yes, just like the people of the moon built their own little robots to help them, the people of the ancient kingdom might have created the Buccaneers to help them raise and protect their families. The Buccaneers at some point started asking to be more than humble servants, and Joyboy, the king of his time, was willing to change that. He promised them the rights to live among anyone else in the kingdom as their own people, even though they were artificially created. This and all the reasons I mentioned at the beginning of my video led to the betrayal of the now so-called Gorosei and 20 families. It was unimaginable that these beings who were created by science should have any human rights. That is why Saturn keeps calling them insects. He doesn't see them as people at all. This one is just a fun idea. I think every time we see Pandaman in the story could be an indication of when Odachi's editor forced him to change things. That is why Pandaman appears in the story here and there. It's a depiction of his editor to tell the reader that something was altered, or maybe not. I just thought it's a funny take. Oh, and by the way, Pandaman even has a rival called Unforgivable Mask. He is hired by the Tomato Gang to track down Pandaman and retrieve the money he owes to the gang. The Tomato Gang and Unforgivable Mask could be depictions of Shonen Jump itself, pressuring the editor to stress Odachi.
Ha ha, very funny. Can we go back to the real theory?
Oh yeah, sorry. My bad. In his logbook, Oden writes about the day that Buggy fell sick. He states, whether out of good fortune or bad, the apprentice deckhand Buggy Jiro caught a sudden fever and had to forego the voyage to the final island. Red Taro chose to stay behind and care for him. Are they best friends or mortal enemies? Whether out of good fortune or bad, as you can see, Oden seems to think that the knowledge they gained at Laughtale could be a burden to some people. That is the same reason why he never spoke about it to his retainers. Or maybe he knows even more. For example, that Laughtale would be the final destination for Shanks and Buggy, and that perhaps one of them would do something there that could harm the other one. Are they best friends or mortal enemies? I got a video on this topic, and if you want to know why I think that Buggy might kill Shanks one day, click here. Do you remember what happened when Lucia got destroyed? A big quake resulting in tsunamis and floods. But the most important thing we learned in chapter 1089 is that where Lulusia was before is now a gigantic hole in the sea, and that the sea levels across the globe rose by approximately 1 meter. Fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen, because here is what I think happened. Remember that I said the world of One Piece is inside of Odachi's head? Remember how I said that Laughtale, the final island, is underneath the terrain current? Remember how I said that Fishhead Odachi himself was living and working in his office underwater? Now, imagine what happens when a gigantic weapon on the inside pokes a hole through your head. For the fish it might have been just a little sting, resulting into some bleeding. But for the world of One Piece, until the wound starts sealing up, it means air leaving the One Piece world.
Huh? I don't really understand. What happens to the water that's flowing inside of the hole?
Good question. I imagine it like this. There's pressure on the inside of the One Piece world. Obviously, otherwise Nami couldn't do all her weather magic and all that stuff, right? But because a hole in the fish's head was made, air is leaving the head. The hole is not big enough to let any water from Odachi's world inside. It is like when you take a needle and make a little hole into a plastic bottle. Unless you put pressure on it, the water won't come out. But the moment the mother frame shot the hole into the ground was the moment air pressure in the whole world was reduced, which resulted into a rise of sea levels and a quake due to Odachi feeling the pain.
Why is the hole not filling up then?
Oh, I think it will fill up eventually, but the thing is, the hole is way deeper than it is wide. This will take a very long time, but eventually it will become the same as the hole that I think is under the terrain current.
Okay, wait. But let's assume you are right before this. And that's a big if.
Yeah, I know.
How do you explain the fact that we saw a planet system at Tohara, or Enel going through the moon? How can all these exist when the world of One Piece is inside of Odachi's head? That would mean they are on the inside of a sphere, right?
Yes and no. I'm still missing a final piece to solve this puzzle, but depending on how Eket ends, I might be able to come up with an answer. But I can say this much: anything man can imagine is a possibility in reality. As Rayleigh said in chapter 603, there is no such thing as coincidence in this world, because as I tried to make clear, everything is happening as foreseen. As Saint Marcus Mars stated when Imo instructed them to use the mother frame on Lulusia in chapter 1086, the world moves at the will of the creator. Now the question is Imo being influenced by the words of the creator in their head? Remember what I said about the ring dice. Is Imo unknowingly playing along with the story, even though the story is the very thing that they might try to stop from continuing? Is one's fate unavoidable, just like destiny will always bring another storm? Or is it possible to escape destiny? And how would the person who achieves this feat be called? Perhaps the freest man in the world? Because only the Pirate King, the freest man in the world, could go beyond and change the rules, and make it so that every child could choose their family. Did Shanks visit Madame Charlie and hear a prophecy from her about a red-haired pirate with one arm that one day would aid the Pirate King to turn the whole world upside down? This would explain why he so easily lost his arm when he saved Luffy. He made a bet on the future.
Oh, little did he know that the prophecy was talking about Eustace, Captain Kidd.
Uh-oh, I think you just got an entire fanbase backing you from this day on, Maki. Doflamingo once said in chapter 761 that the very fact of its existence would shake the world to its foundations. He's talking about the secret treasure within Marijoras, the texts the world government once deciphered from the poneglyphs. Hiroluk once stated that a man dies when people forget him. Roger too stated that he won't die. This is because, as long as people read the manga One Piece, as long as their names show up in the Wikipedias or are mentioned in videos, so long they won't die. One day Luffy might leave his world to meet the creator. He will do this with a Don, the power of Nika. Don. Do. To. To. Don do toto, 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 don do toto. With the sound of Nika's heartbeat, the same sound that the Buccaneers, which were created after Nika's likeness, used to power the machines of the ancient kingdom, the same sound which Joy Boy used to control the iron giant that attacked Marijoras, the very sound of creation. And he will find out that the fish head he encounters is just another creation of someone's fantasy, and then will maybe even go beyond this world. A foreshadowing for this might have already happened.
Dude, listen, I would lie if I said I didn't enjoy the past hour, but don't you think you are way overboard before this?
You think so? I can actually give you a list of other manga where the characters interact with their creator.
Are you serious?
Yes. I am not going to tell much about them, for obvious reasons such as not wanting to spoil the people. The manga Biddy Bat is one of these examples and really can be confusing at some points. There is another series called SSSS Gridman that goes into the similar direction. But the one manga that I really have in mind is Opus by Satoshi Kon. In it, the mangaka himself gets sucked into the world of his own creation. My friend Dilkor has an amazing video about it. I will link it in the description. These are just a few examples, but it is not too far-fetched to assume that Oda could have something like this in his mind. Or should I say, had? The day of the big flood will come and the Ark Noah will finally fulfill its purpose. Whether it will be the Sea Kings that poke several holes into the bottom of the sea or the Mother Frame, eventually the great flood will come and Luffy will be on top of the Ark, just like in this picture. The very first cover page we see in the story. And that little banner you see on the top reading One Piece, that might be the very piece of paper Joy Boy stole from Odachi's desk. Remember when I spoke about Desuteni, the name I gave to the ancient kingdom? I also told you that in Japanese, teni means in hand. You know what is also in your hand? A manga, and the pen that draws the story is in the hand of the creator too. The hand that creates the story, and therefore destiny. And when you turn the page of the last volume, close the manga and put it on the table, you finally turned the world upside down. Oh, one more thing, Maki.
Yeah, what you said?
So I just told you and the viewers about how the whole world of One Piece is just a product of someone's imagination, right?
Yeah, what about it?
Well, just like you.
Kiss